Welcome. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about this book called the ESSENE Gospel of Peace, complete edition. It's very, very, very interesting. And what is it all about? Well, I'm going to read a couple, like a little passage, but mostly I'm just going to talk about it. So, this text it was taken from the Vatican archives in the early 1900s. And there's a guy named Edmund Bordeaux Siskey, or however you pronounce his name, and he translated it. And he translated the first copy in in French in 1928 in French. So he had access to the Vatican vaults, and one of them priests or whatever they're called, bishops or whatever, he said he went through a lot of the books and he said, I want to take this and translate it. He said, well, you can't take it out of the Vatican because that's illegal. Nothing leaves the Vatican vaults. Definitely not by this guy or with that guy. I can't just take the manuscript out. And he's like, okay, well, I'll translate it. I'll stay in here and then translate it and write it down and work with it over the years. He's like, that's fine, but you just can't take the actual legitimate manuscript out. It stays here forever. And he's like, you can do whatever you want, essentially, aside from that. So he took it, he worked with it, translated it. I think he was friends with a person named Aldous Huxley. I could be wrong. It could be another guy that sounds like that. I think that was the right guy. So he's friends with him. He was a philosopher and I forget something else. So he took it and translated it, and there's 4 books that he compiled and translated into. At the end of maybe 70 years later, he completed like four small books and put them together into one book. And you have, so this is the 4 books here. So it's actually still a small book, right? And he slowly translated them throughout the years. Like, they were very dry. It was a very dry script and boring. So we kind of had to make it a little smoother and interesting. I think when he translated the first book, Aldous Huxley was like, awesome. But then when he went and translated the second book in like 1970 or something, or 1940, I'm not sure, Aldous Huxley was like, great, but it's way, way too dry and boring. Like, you got to make it poetic, like the first version, the first book you did. You got to keep on that track, right? So I think by the time of 1981, he completed all 4 books, and then it put them together, and you have this one. It's called the complete edition. But it's honestly, this 150 pages, and it's easy reading. Like, it's not thick, annoying text. It's like smooth reading. And I've only read about 50 pages so far, but it's very interesting, and it's just, I love it. I love reading religions and ancient texts. I love it, love it, love it. Like, I've read hundreds of books on religion, spirituality, metaphysics, those types. Mostly through audiobook, but many through actual physical book too. So what is this book, and is it legitimate? Is it real? So a lot of the current people, historians and such, they say it's not legitimate. It's not classified as a legitimate text because it's just not seen that way. But I mean, anything in the Bible world, unless it's like just the basic current version of the Bible, everything else is pretty much all fake and doesn't count. It's not real. It's just some weird woo crap. It's just the Bible. It's the only thing that's legit. The current version, because there's been, throughout the last many years, it's been altered and changed drastically. So anyway, this is in particular very, very awesome. There's also many other manuscripts and books. The Gnostic scriptures with the Gospel of Thomas. That one in particular is pretty cool. There's a lot of really interesting Jesus statements in there that don't really resonate with the current version of the Bible. They're very Buddhist. They're very Hindu. They're very like, split a piece of wood and I am there. Lift a rock and I am there. The kingdom of God is within you. People do not see the kingdom of heaven, but I say truly unto you that it is spread out across the world, across the earth, and people do not see it. So there's a lot of stuff like in there that's kind of weird and contradictory and doesn't quite fit in the current version of the Bible. So they're just like, it's all totally fake, totally illegitimate. It's heresy, it's blasphemy, whatever. So they just write everything off except for very, very specific text, even though a lot of these scriptures come from the same places, and these manuscripts, there's many other manuscripts, but they just write them off and be like, no, only this one is legit. But there's many other ones that are just as 100% just as legitimate, but they haven't been crafted into a specific religion throughout the years, and crafted and altered and put together just so to make the religion palatable for a wide diverse, multicultural, right? So that if you go and take over the world and enforce a religion, people can adapt it more if it's more designed to be more for everyone, right? And that's the Bible in this current day and age. Even though there's tons of really weird contradictory stuff in the Bible, like there's so much, like Paul in particular, there's so many, a lot of it's like written by Paul, the New Testament, and Paul hunted and killed Christians, the early Christians, right? And Paul said things like, this is my gospel because I specifically talked to God, and this is my version of the gospel. And then he wrote like tons of the Bible. And then the words Jesus said in the New Testament totally contradict what Paul's saying. They're like completely different gospels because it was the gospel of Paul. He didn't call it that. He called it the gospel. Well, he said in my gospel. And they're totally contradictory. And the current, there's like 100 different types of Christian sects now, types of Christianity. But in general, it's more Paul. It's almost all Paul. And Jesus is kind of like, his words are kind of like just brushed off, and they're kind of, they don't really make sense or whatever. And it's all Paul. The current dogma, and the term dogma just means like the current set of generalized beliefs around a religion. What the general structure and belief system of a religion is. That's what a dogma is. But if you go and read the Bible, you can make 100 totally different religions, 100 completely different dogmas out of the Bible, because there's so much content in there. Like there's tons and tons and tons and tons of content. Tons of it contradicts other pieces of content. You can make any religion out of that book, right? Pick a few passages here and there, and you create a dogma and say, these are the most important passages. This is what we believe. So in today's day and age, the current dogmas, most of the dogmas are all Paul, everything Paul said. And Paul hunted and killed Christians for many, many years. And then he said completely different stuff that Jesus said. So anyway, back to what we're talking about, the Essene Gospel of Peace, this particular book. And there's other books out there that talk of the Essenes. A lot of people kind of made their own versions, and a lot of them are definitely not legitimate. There's a lot of not legitimate, extremely not legitimate Essene writings out there. But this one, the Essene Gospel of Peace, is actually very, very, very legitimate in my point of view. And I'm not an expert, but I know of another expert. He's getting his master's. He's currently finishing up his master's in some sort of Bible bibliography, some sort of Bible degree. And he said this one in particular is legit, and he actually like preaches it now, this version or this particular text, right? So the Essenes, who were the Essenes? So around the time, they're a Jewish sect, a very, very mystical, weird Jewish sect. They operated very similar to how, like, a good example would be, they operated very similar to like a Hindu ashram. Very, 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 very similar to a Hindu ashram. You had to prove through several years of practices that you were devoted enough to even get into their group, to even be allowed in their small little ashram, essentially. It's not a city. It's a group of a couple thousand people. And they had a ton of practices, weird prayers, things, weird fasting rituals, weird ways of eating, tons of like hardcore meditation and other things. They're very, very mystical. They talked about stuff like the seven angels of the elements of the earth, and the seven angels of the heavens. And they prayed to these angels and worked miracles with them and such. They were strict vegetarians. There was two main sects of the Essenes. There was two main, but they were basically the same. There was only one thing that separated these two main sects, and there was a couple thousand on each side, 2, 3, 4,000. I'm not sure exactly the numbers. One sect believed in, I think they were also a doomsday sect. That's what I heard. I don't know. I haven't researched it enough, but I heard they were a doomsday sect, which lines up with the rest of the Bible too, right? So one sect, one half believed that one of their rules was abstinence from sex. That was one half. And then the other half was like, no, be plentiful, have tons of kids, and populate the earth. How else are we going to grow as a society? And that was the one that Jesus was in. He was in that one. And he had three brothers. One was named James. And before he died, he appointed James to carry on his church, and Jesus was a priest in this sect. He was a priest of the Essenes, or Nazarenes. Nazarene is another term for their sect, their type of Judaism, very mystical Judaism sect. And at the time, there were also the other Jewish sects were the Pharisees and the Sadducees. There might have been other ones. But I think it was the Pharisees that eventually killed him. And it's a long story. What happened was he was opposing a lot of the rituals. He was opposing mainly the blood sacrifice rituals in the temples. And he was against it, very against it. He said it was demonic, born of Satan, and and a lot of people were getting rich off of it too. some people. So he opposed it, and he knew if he went far enough, pushed it hard enough, they would kill him, and then they did. So another aspect of this is that the Nazarenes, or the Essenes, were another little side note. The people say Jesus was from Nazarene, Jesus the Nazarene, as in town, but that's not actually. If you go into the hardcore history of it, it wasn't about a town. It was actually, the sect was called Nazarenes. They were Nazarenes. It wasn't the area, it was the type of Judaism. So that was kind of whitewashed out of the Bible. Also, another kind of horrifying idea is that, looking back historically, they say now that the Catholic Church condemned all the Essenes as heretics, and they hunted and killed them off. This is like 1,000 years ago, or more, like almost, I don't know, 1,700 years, something like that. 1,800 years ago. They're like, you're all evil. We're going to hunt you out and kill you all because you're too mystical and weird. But it's like, that's what Jesus was preaching, that particular type of Judaism, which was against so much of what was going on. Anyway, yeah, it's crazy. So they were strict vegetarians. They were kind of like monks. They ate very strict diets of very low fat, very high carb. Basically, like, they just eat wheat all day, or barley all day, or honey or fruit all day, whatever was in season. And they preached water fasting to cure most diseases. So 7-day water fast for light diseases, and then like a 40 or 50-day water fast for if you had tons of horrible diseases. And they say the angel of water and the angel of light and the angel of air will heal you if you let them, if you fast. And then the demons in your system will get washed out. The demons of, gluttony and meat consumption, and alcohol consumption, and bad sinful ways of living and such. And so they spoke a lot about the elements, appreciating and praying to the angels of the elements, and which I find is interesting because it aligns. So many of the Essenes gospel aligns perfectly or very close to Hinduism and some types of Buddhism or Tantra. Classical Tantra, not Western Tantra. And I find that interesting because I've researched and practiced many religions over the last 20 years and got into them really deep. And currently I'm basically Hindu. That's my thing. That's where my years of study and hard work and hard study and hard practicing, that's where I've ended up after 20 years. I find it to be the most legitimate. Yes, there's still a lot of bullshit in Hinduism, but personally I found it the most legitimate. If you're actually serious about evolving spiritually, it's the most legitimate. Anyway, and by that I just mean it's the most real spirituality, not fake fake clubs that people join, I mean, there's still a lot of issues. Some gurus in India are still horrible people and take advantage of people. That happens in any religion, though. So anyone that says that gurus are just evil and they just take advantage and they're just cult leaders, it's yes, some of those exist, of course, because humans when they come into power, they easily get corrupted. That's just the human thing. You could say the exact same for any other religion. And think about it. Think about Catholicism. Think about the Vatican. like uh, the children and priests, molestation cases of priests and children. There's been hundreds, maybe thousands of them, and they get brushed under the table. But like one guru does that, and all of a sudden, all Hinduism and all yogi gurus, and they're all just total. They're all evil. It's like, no, it happens. People are like that. You come into power, or weird, tons of weird religious rules and power, and it's bad mixture, and people look up to them, and then they abuse that power. It's just it's a human thing. It happens. That being said, I'd say most gurus that are in India that are looked up to currently and throughout the years, a lot of them are legit. They're amazing people that helped a lot of people. Mostly just evolve spiritually, but in a lot of other ways too. Anyway, so I'm going to read a passage of the ESSENE Gospel of Peace. I'm going to read a passage. It's a short version. It's a short passage when Jesus is talking about, and at the time, his name was Yeshua. So Jesus is a mistranslation of his actual name. So Yeshua was his proper name. Yeshua. Yeah. There's different ways of kind of pronouncing the end of it, but Yeshua. So I'm just going to read a quick passage, and it's him talking about not eating flesh, not consuming flesh, because it was very, very, very strict in the ESSENE group at that time. It was absolutely no flesh consumption. Oh, we got some neighbors hanging out. So, and the whole thing with Jesus eating fish and working miracles with fish, those are edits to the Bible. The early versions didn't have those in the manuscripts. They were added. They were totally 100% edited. It's Rome trying to make the religion palatable for the countries and regions they were conquering at the time, and they were enforcing the religion, and they were like, there's no way we're going to sell this to the Greeks if they're not allowed to eat meat. They will revolt. They'll try to kill us or whatever. So we'll let them eat meat. We got to take that out of the Bible. No problem. We'll just make some edits. Because the Greeks, they love lamb and such. They love their meats. It was huge in their culture at the time, even now to this day and age. So I'm just gonna read this quick passage about him talking about, like, because the original 10 Commandments, one of them was "Thou shalt not kill," and out of those 10, a lot of the Jewish peoples, they, at least from what I'd heard, or maybe it was in this book, they had problems following these 10 Commandments. So they kind of edited it over the years. So they're like, okay, let's change the "Thou shalt not kill" to mean humans. "Thou shalt not kill humans." That's like an edit. And then a further edit would be like, unless you're at war and the war is for God, then it's okay. So that's 2 edits, right? It's not the original. The original is "Thou shalt not kill." And what the commandment meant by that was anything that God has, like, animated and made alive to move and breathe and function, anything that of that type would be considered killing. So animals, that would be considered killing. Thou shalt not kill. It's like, it's not rocket science. Thou shalt not kill. Unless it's a war for God, then it's okay. Unless it's a dirty animal, then it's okay. It's like, well, when did they edit that, right? Anyway, so I'm going to read this passage, and it's interesting. It's very interesting. Okay, so this is the passage that mentions don't eat flesh. It was said to them of old, honor your heavenly Father and your earth mother. There's a lot of speech of Mother Earth, a lot, and it makes sense. It's like, yeah, makes sense. Okay, so back. That was me adding something. So I'll get back into it. I'll start from the top. It was said. So this is page 40. It was said to them of old, honor your heavenly Father and your earth mother, and keep their commandments, that your days may be long upon the earth. And afterward, this command was given, you shall not kill. For life is the gift of God, and what God has given, let no man take away. Truly I say to you, from one mother comes all that lives upon the earth. Whoever kills, kills his brother. The earth mother will turn her face from him, and will take from him her life-giving nourishment. Her angels will depart from him, and the evil ones will enter into his body. Slaughtered animals' flesh within his body will become his own grave. I declare truthfully, that whoever destroys life destroys himself, and whoever consumes slaughtered animals' flesh consumes death's body. Within his life force, every drop of their life force becomes poison. In his breathing, their breathing becomes putrid. In his flesh, their flesh becomes boils. In his bones, their bones turn to ash. In his bowels, their bowels become rottenness. In his eyes, their eyes become film. In his ears, their ears become wax and decay. Their death will be his death. Only in serving your heavenly Father are the debts of 7 years wiped away in 7 days. But the evil ones forgive nothing and demand payment to the last. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, stroke for a stroke, wound for a wound, life for a life, death for a death. The wages of sin is death. Therefore do not kill, nor eat the flesh of your innocent victims, lest you become slaves of the evil one. For that is the path of suffering, which leads unto death. And it kind of goes on and on and on. Like the next 2 pages talks more of it. And then he's talking to a group of people that are all like sickly, and he's like getting them to fast. He's like, water fast, 7 days at least. And they're like dying. He's like, just fast, you'll be fine. I'll come back in 7 days. And then some of them were like, we're really sick though. We've been, living terribly for a long, long time. It's like, okay, you do 40-day fast or 50-day fast, 7 times 7 days. And the evil spirits will leave your body, and the disease is essentially like an evil spirit to these guys. Shall I read a little bit more? But keep the will of God, that his angels may serve you on the path of life. Obey then the words of God. Look, I have granted you every seed-bearing plant upon the earth's surface, and every tree containing fruit with seed. These shall nourish you. To every earth creature, to every air bird, and to everything that crawls upon the earth, wherein is life. I have given every green herb for food. Also, the milk of every creature that moves and lives upon the earth shall be your food, even as I give them the green herbs, so I give you their milk. But flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood, you shall not eat. Anyway, I could go on for a couple pages, but I'm going to stop there because you're probably bored or whatever. Anyway, it's a very, very interesting read. Another thing too in the Bible, it says, I think it's in Genesis, it says something like, you shall have dominion over all the animals and bugs and animals of the planet of earth. And then a different section, another verse further on, it says, or soon after, it says, and for your food you shall eat all the fruits and seeds and green of the planet, or the earth. They're two different, like they're different verses, right? But in the current day and age, I think a lot of Christians smush them together, like, and dominion over the animals means you can eat them too. But it's a different statement in a different verse, and it means something completely different. It means you are the protectors and guardians of the earth. And then after it says, and for food, you can eat the plants and seeds and fruit. Anyway, I think I'll leave it at that. There's probably there's so many other things I could talk about. So this one guy, Aaron Abke, he's on YouTube, and he has a podcast called The Jesus Way Podcast. And he's getting his master's in some Bible thing. And he's been, I think, he was a pastor, I think, and he's been basically a pastor for a long time. The thing is, he was in a really, really, really culty, nasty, evangelical like church, and he had to leave them because he didn't see eye to eye, but he still had a love for Jesus. So I'm glad he's actually what I learned about the Essenes from, and I'm glad I did, because out of a lot of the holy books and a lot of the religions out there that I've really dived deep into and like practiced, I found that like the Bible was lacking. It was lacking really deep spirituality. It's not there. Like I couldn't find it in there. I found it as little crumbs of it in the surrounding texts that weren't in the Bible. But I mean, there is still, honestly, there's still a lot of great stuff in the Bible, right? Jesus had a lot of words in there. But anyway, this guy Aaron Abke, he's making me a little more open to having some good spiritual practices and concepts and teachings from actual Jesus, from the legitimate Jesus, from how he lived way back when. And a lot of this stuff has been almost all of it has been completely washed out of Christianity, because keep in mind, Jesus wasn't a Christian. He was a mystical Jew that opposed the Jewish practices at the time, a lot of them very aggressively. He was Jewish. Anyway, so we'll end there. If you got anything good out of it, like and subscribe, any value or whatever, or any enjoyment, and there will be more great content coming down the pipeline. Peace.